Awakening, the last human, the hum of ancient machinery pierced the silence of a long-forgotten underground facility. Deep within the bowels of what was once Earth's most secure bunker, a single cryopod hissed open. Mist billowed out, carrying with it the last breath of a bygone era. From within, a figure stirred, taking their first breath in over 1,000 years. Commander Zara Chen's eyes fluttered open, her mind groggy from centuries of cryo-sleep. As awareness slowly returned, so did the crushing weight of memory. The swarm, the fall of Earth, the desperate plan to preserve what remained of humanity. Zara stumbled out of the pod, her muscles weak from disuse. The facility's emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over banks of silent cryopods. She stumbled to the nearest console, praying it still functioned after all this time. The screen flickered to life, and Zara's heart sank. Of the 1,000 pods meant to preserve Earth's best and brightest, only hers had maintained power. The others had failed centuries ago, their occupants lost to time. "No," Zara whispered, her voice hoarse. "It can't be. I can't be the only one left." But the data didn't lie. As far as the system knew, Commander Zara Chen was the last human being alive in the galaxy. Zara sank to her knees, overwhelmed by the magnitude of her situation. She allowed herself a moment of grief for her lost comrades, for the civilization that had been snuffed out. Then, with the resolve that had made her one of Earth's top military strategists, she pushed herself to her feet. "Okay, Zara," she muttered. "You're alone, in an ancient bunker, on a planet that's probably been strip-mined to bedrock by the swarm. Step 1. Figure out what the hell happened while you were asleep." She returned to the console, fingers flying over the keyboard as she accessed the facility's databanks. News reports, scientific data, and military communiques flashed across the screen, painting a grim picture of humanity's fall. The swarm, a hive-mind alien race, had descended upon Earth without warning. Their biomechanical ships had darkened the skies, their drones swarming over cities and farmland alike. Humanity had fought back with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. Within months, Earth's defenses had crumbled. As she delved deeper into the records, Zara discovered something that gave her pause. The swarm hadn't simply conquered Earth, they had consumed it. The aliens stripped the planet of resources, broke down organic matter to fuel their endless expansion, and moved on to the next world. But they hadn't stopped with Earth. The swarm had spread across the galaxy like a plague, consuming world after world. The few alien races that had tried to resist suffered the same fate as humanity. Those that survived did so by bowing to the swarm, becoming vassals in exchange for a meager existence. "My God," Zara breathed. "They're unstoppable." Yet, as she continued to read, a glimmer of hope emerged. Reports from the edges of known space spoke of resistance. Small pockets of survivors from various races, banding together to fight back against the swarm. They were vastly outnumbered and outgunned, but they refused to give up. Zara's military mind kicked into gear. If these resistance fighters were still out there, they could use her help. Earth might be gone, but humanity's spirit could live on through her. She just needed to find a way off this rock and make contact. With renewed purpose, Zara began to explore the facility. Most of the equipment was useless after centuries of neglect, but she managed to cobble together a survival pack. Ration bars, water purifiers, and a few pieces of technology that still functioned. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. As she prepared to leave the bunker, Zara paused at a weapons locker. Inside, she found an experimental pulse rifle, one of the last weapons Earth had developed in its desperate bid to fight off the swarm. She slung it over her shoulder, comforted by its familiar weight. "All right," she said to the empty room. "Time to see what's left of my world." The bunker's main door creaked open for the first time in a millennium. Zara stepped out, shielding her eyes against the harsh sunlight. As her vision adjusted, she gasped at the alien landscape before her. Where once there had been a thriving metropolis, now there was only a vast, barren plain. The swarm had been thorough in their consumption of Earth. Not a single building remained standing. The ground itself seemed different, harder, more metallic, as if the very bedrock had been altered by the swarm's presence. In the distance, Zara spotted movement. A group of figures, too far away to make out clearly, seemed to be scavenging through the remains of Earth. Her heart leaped. Could there be other survivors? But as she watched, a shadow fell over the plain. A massive ship, unmistakably of swarm design, descended from the clouds. Beams of energy lanced out, vaporizing the scavengers in an instant. Zara ducked back into the shelter of the bunker's entrance, her mind racing. The swarm was still here, still monitoring Earth. Perhaps they sensed the energy signature when her cryopod activated. Whatever the reason, she couldn't stay here. She needed a ship, a way off this dead world, and for that, she needed to get closer to the swarm. As the massive ship rose back into the atmosphere, Zara steeled herself. She was Commander Zara Chen, the last human, and she had a galaxy to save. With a deep breath, she stepped out onto the plains of Earth and began her journey. Little did she know, her awakening had sent ripples across the cosmos. In the darkest corners of space, on worlds thought long lost, a spark of hope began to flicker. The last human was awake, and the galaxy would never be the rebellion. Sparks of hope. Commander Zara Chen crouched behind the twisted remains of what might have once been a skyscraper, her eyes fixed on the swarm outpost in the distance. After weeks of careful observation and narrowly avoiding patrols, she had finally found what she was looking for: a small hangar housing scout ships. Her time on the surface of Earth had been a harsh reminder of how much had changed. The planet was barely recognizable, its surface reshaped by the swarm's insatiable hunger for resources. Yet, in the midst of this desolation, Zara had discovered something unexpected: life. Small creatures, twisted and mutated by centuries of exposure to the swarm's biomechanical influence, scurried through the ruins. Plants, their leaves shimmering with an otherworldly metallic sheen, pushed through cracks in the altered bedrock. Earth, it seemed, refused to die completely. Zara checked her makeshift chrono. The swarm, for all their alien nature, were creatures of habit. In precisely 3 minutes, the patrol guarding the hangar would rotate, leaving a brief window for her to make her move. As she waited, Zara's mind drifted to the databanks she'd studied before leaving the bunker. The swarm's conquest hadn't been total. There were whispers of resistance, of alien races banding together to fight back. If she could just get off Earth, maybe she could find them, offer her knowledge, her skills. The sound of heavy, rhythmic footsteps snapped her back to the present. The swarm patrol was moving, right on schedule. Zara tightened her grip on the pulse rifle and took a deep breath. Now or never, she whispered to herself. With a burst of speed that surprised even her, Zara sprinted across the open ground towards the hangar. Her heart pounded in her ears, every step feeling like an eternity. She expected to hear the whine of energy weapons at any moment, to feel the searing heat of a swarm blast. But nothing came. She reached the hangar door, her hands flying over the alien control panel. Thanks to her study of swarm technology, she managed to bypass the lock. The door slid open with a soft hiss, and Zara slipped inside. The interior of the hangar was dimly lit, filled with the soft pulsing of biomechanical technology. 3 scout ships sat on launch pads, their organic curves a stark contrast to the sleek vessels of Zara's time. She approached the nearest ship, her hands hovering over its surface. The vessel seemed to react to her presence, panels shifting and realigning. It was almost as if it were curious. "Okay," Zara muttered. "Let's see if I can fly this thing." As she placed her hand on what she hoped was the entry point, the ship's surface rippled. A seam appeared, widening into an opening. Zara climbed inside, finding herself in a cockpit unlike anything she'd ever seen. There were no visible controls, just a large, pulsating mass that reminded her uncomfortably of a brain. Hesitantly, she placed her hands on it. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Information flooded her mind, star charts, ship diagnostics, weapon systems. It was as if the ship was interfacing directly with her thoughts. Incredible, she breathed. But there was no time to marvel at the technology. Alarms began to blare outside the hangar. Her presence had been detected. Zora focused her thoughts on launch procedures, and the ship responded. It lifted off the ground, hovering for a moment before shooting out of the hangar at incredible speed. As Earth fell away beneath her, Zara felt a pang of loss. This was her home, the cradle of humanity, and she was leaving it behind. But she couldn't dwell on sentiment. She had a mission now, to find the resistance, to ensure that humanity's legacy lived on. The ship broke through the atmosphere, the blackness of space spreading out before her. For a moment, Zara allowed herself to feel a flicker of hope. She was free, off-world, with a powerful ship at her command. Then her sensors lit up. Swarm vessels, dozens of them, converging on her position. Out of the frying pan, Zara growled, urging her stolen ship to its maximum speed. The pursuit was relentless. Swarm ships fired energy blasts that narrowly missed her, the weapons far more powerful than anything she'd faced on Earth. Zara weaved and dodged, pushing her newfound connection with the ship to its limits. As she neared the edge of the solar system, an idea struck her. The ship's database had mentioned something about faster-than-light travel, a concept that had been theoretical in her time. If she could just figure out how to activate it. A swarm blast rocked her ship, alarms blaring. Shields were failing. It was now or never. Zara focused all her will on the idea of FTL travel, picturing the stars stretching into lines around her. The ship's brain-like control pulsed rapidly, and then reality seemed to twist. The stars blurred, and Zara felt a sensation of impossible speed. When everything stabilized, she found herself in an unfamiliar star system, the swarm pursuit left far behind. As the adrenaline faded, the enormity of what she'd just done hit her. She, Commander Zara Chen, had just become the first human to travel faster than light. But there was no time to celebrate. She was alone in an unknown part of the galaxy, hunted by the swarm, with only the vaguest notion of where to find allies. As Zara began to explore the ship's star charts, searching for any sign of the resistance she'd read about, a transmission crackled through her ship's communication system. The language was alien, but thanks to her neural link with the ship, she could understand it. Unknown vessel, you have entered freehold space. Identify yourself or be destroyed. Zara's heart raced. This could be it, the contact she'd been hoping for, or it could be another threat. Either way, she knew her response would shape the course of her future, and possibly the future of humanity itself. With a deep breath, she opened a channel to respond. This is Commander Zara Chen of Earth. I seek those who resist the swarm. I come as an ally, and perhaps as the last human in the galaxy. There was a long pause. Zara held her breath, acutely aware of how vulnerable she was. Finally, a response came. Earth? That world was consumed centuries ago. If you truly are human, then your arrival changes everything. Prepare to be boarded, Commander Chen. We have much to discuss. As a massive patchwork ship of clearly alien design cloaked in front of her, Zara allowed herself a small smile. This was just the beginning. She had found her way off Earth, escaped the swarm, and made first contact with potential allies. The real fight, she knew, was just beginning. But for the first time since she'd awoken from cryo-sleep, Commander Zara Chen felt something she'd almost forgotten: hope. Alliance. Unlikely friends. The docking procedure was tense, to say the least. Zara's stolen swarm ship, responsive as it was to her thoughts, wasn't designed to interface with the hodgepodge vessel she now approached. It took all her concentration and no small amount of creative problem-solving to guide her craft into the alien docking bay without incident. As the airlock cycled, Zara took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever lay beyond. Her pulsed rifle was a comforting weight in her hands, but she kept it lowered. She was here as a potential ally, not a threat. The inner door slid open with a hiss, revealing a sight that took Zara's breath away. Before her stood a diverse group of aliens, each more fantastical than the last. There were towering crystalline beings that seemed to shimmer with inner light, small, furry creatures with multiple arms and large, expressive eyes, and hulking reptilian humanoids covered in iridescent scales. At the forefront stood a being that appeared to be made of pure energy, contained within a translucent, humanoid shell. It, or perhaps they, stepped forward, hands raised in what Zara hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "Welcome aboard the Nexus." Commander Chen, the energy being, spoke, its voice a melodious hum that seemed to resonate in Zara's mind rather than her ears. "I am Zix, leader of this band of misfits and rebels. We are the last free alliance in this sector of the galaxy." Zara lowered her weapon completely, offering a salute born of centuries-old military habit. "Thank you for not blasting me out of the sky," she said, attempting a smile. "I imagine a swarm ship appearing out of nowhere gave you quite a scare." A ripple of what might have been laughter passed through the assembled aliens. Zix's energy form pulsed with amusement. "You have no idea, Commander. But your distress call, well, it was too intriguing to ignore. A human after all this time. We had to see for ourselves." One of the reptilian beings stepped forward, its scales shifting color in what Zara guessed was agitation. "How do we know this isn't some swarm trick?" it growled, forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. "Humans have been extinct for centuries. This could be a trap." Zara met the alien's gaze steadily. "I understand your suspicion. If I were in your position, I feel the same. But I assure you, I am very much human and very much alone. I was in cryostasis, hidden away in Earth's last secure bunker. When I awoke, everything was gone. My world, my people, consumed by the swarm." She paused, fighting back the wave of emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. "I stole this ship, figured out how to fly it, and came looking for anyone who might still be fighting. And here you are." Zix floated closer, its energy form rippling with what seemed like curiosity. "Your story is incredible, Commander. But if it's true, you could be invaluable to our cause. The swarm's origins have always been a mystery to us. If you truly lived through their initial invasion, you might have information that could help us defeat them." Zara nodded, her military training kicking in. "I'll share everything I know. But first, I need to understand what I'm dealing with here. How long have you been fighting the swarm? What kind of resources do you have?" The reptilian alien snorted, a sound somewhere between amusement and frustration. "Resources? We have scraps and determination, human. Nothing more." "Peace, Crix," Zix admonished gently. "We have more than that. We have each other, and now potentially we have you, Commander Chen." Zix gestured for Zara to follow, leading her deeper into the ship. As they walked, Zara marveled at the strange mix of technologies around her. Some areas resembled the biomechanical nature of the swarm ship she'd stolen, while others were purely mechanical, with exposed wires and patchwork repairs evident everywhere. "The Nexus is a refuge," Zix explained, noticing Zara's wandering gaze. "We've collected refugees from 100 worlds, survivors of swarm attacks, and those who refuse to bow to their dominion. Each brings their own knowledge, their own technologies. We adapt, we improvise, we survive." They entered what appeared to be a command center. Holographic displays showed star maps, ship schematics, and what looked like battle plans. Aliens of various species worked at consoles, their movements urgent and purposeful. "This is impressive," Zara said, her strategic mind already analyzing the setup. "You're not just hiding from the swarm, you're actively fighting back." Crix, who had followed them, let out a rumbling laugh. "Fighting back? We're barely staying alive. Hit-and-run attacks, sabotage missions. Nothing that really hurts them." Zix's energy form flickered, a gesture Zara was beginning to interpret as frustration. "Crix speaks harshly, but not untruthfully. We resist. but we lack the strength to truly challenge the swarm's dominion. Zara approached one of the star maps, studying it intently. Maybe that's because you've been thinking too small, she mused. The swarm, they're not invincible. We hurt them back on Earth, before we fell. If we could just find a weakness. Her words were interrupted by a blaring alarm. The command center erupted into frenzied activity. Swarm ships detected. A multi-armed alien called out from a nearby console. They found us. Zix's form pulsed rapidly. How? We're cloaked, shielded. Crix turned to Zara, eyes narrowing. The human. They must have tracked her ship. Zara's mind raced. No, that's impossible. I made the jump to FTL. They couldn't have. She trailed off, a horrible realization dawning. Unless they let me escape, use me to find you. The accusation in Crick's eyes faded, replaced by grim understanding. A trap, he growled. We should have known. Zix moved to a central console, its energy form stretching out to interface with the ship's systems. Prepare for emergency jump. All hands, battle stations. But Zara was already moving, her military training taking over. Wait. We can't run, not yet. If we jump now, we'll just lead them to another hiding spot. We need to stand and fight. Prick sparked out a laugh. Fight? Against a swarm fleet? That's suicide. Zara shook her head, her mind working furiously. Not if we use their own tactics against them. The ship I stole, it's still in your hangar, right? It's connected to their network. If I can access it, maybe I can feed them false information, confuse their sensors. Zix's form pulsed with what might have been hope. It's risky, Commander. But we're out of options. What do you need? Get me back to that ship, Zara said, already moving towards the door. And buy me some time. Use whatever weapons you have. Keep them distracted. As Zara sprinted through the corridors of the Nexus, alarms blaring around her, she felt a surge of adrenaline. This was what she was trained for. This was why she had survived, why she had awoken after all this time. She reached the hangar just as the first impacts rocked the ship. The stolen swarm vessel sat where she had left it, its biomechanical surface pulsing gently. Zara placed her hands on the control interface, feeling the rush of information flood her mind. But this time she pushed back, using every trick and protocol she remembered from Earth's cyber warfare division. Come on, she muttered, sweat beading on her forehead as she navigated the alien system. Show me what you've got. Outside, the battle raged. The Nexus's patchwork defenses held, barely, against the onslaught of swarm ships. But Zara knew it was only a matter of time before they were overwhelmed. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, she found it, a backdoor into the swarm's battle network. With a fierce grin, Zara began to work her magic. In the command center, Zix and Crix watched in awe as the swarm fleet suddenly began to move erratically, their coordinated attack falling into disarray. By the ancient stars, Crix breathed. What is that human doing? Zix's energy form pulsed with excitement. She's giving us a chance. All ships, press the attack. Target their command vessels. The tide of battle turned swiftly. The Nexus and its small complement of fighter craft tore into the confused swarm fleet. Ships that had seemed unstoppable mere moments ago now fell to concentrated fire, their biomechanical hulls rupturing in spectacular explosions. In the hangar, Zara finally released her grip on the swarm ship's controls, gasping for breath. She had done all she could. The rest was up to her new allies. As the last swarm ship burst into flames, a cheer went up throughout the Nexus. Zara made her way back to the command center, exhausted but triumphant. Zix met her at the door, its energy form practically vibrating with excitement. Commander Chen, that was incredible. How did you do it? Zara allowed herself a tired smile. Just a little trick we were working on back on Earth. Turns out, the swarm's hive mind has its weaknesses. Feed it the right kind of contradictory information, and it starts to break down. Crix approached, his scaled face set in an expression Zara couldn't quite read. For a moment, tension filled the air. Then, to her surprise, the reptilian alien extended a clawed hand. "I may have misjudged you, human," Crix rumbled. "Perhaps there's hope for us yet." As Zara clasped Crix's hand, she felt a surge of emotion. These aliens, so different from her in form, were now her comrades in arms. Together, they had achieved what none of them could have done alone. Zix's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Commander Chen, I believe it's time we had a proper strategy session. If you can do this much damage with one stolen ship, imagine what we could accomplish with our combined knowledge and resources." Zara nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "Agreed. The swarm thinks they've consumed humanity, that we're no longer a threat. They're about to learn how wrong they are." As the assembled aliens cheered, Zara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She was no longer alone, no longer the last human adrift in a hostile galaxy. She'd have found her place, her purpose. The fight against the swarm was far from over. But for the first time since she had awoken from cryo-sleep, Commander Zara Chen allowed herself to believe that they might just have a chance at victory. Counterattack, turning the tide. The weeks following the Nexus's victory over the swarm attack were a whirlwind of activity. Commander Zara Chen found herself at the center of a strategic revolution, her knowledge of Earth's final days proving invaluable to the Resistance. In the Nexus's makeshift war room, Zara stood before a holographic display of known swarm-controlled systems. Aliens of various species crowded around, their diverse forms a testament to the reach of the swarm's conquest. "The key," Zara explained, her voice steady with the confidence of a seasoned commander, "is to understand the swarm's nature. They're not just conquerors, they're consumers. Every world they take becomes part of their network, feeding their endless hunger for resources and expansion." Crix, the reptilian alien who had become one of Zara's closest allies, nodded his scaled head. "We've seen this behavior, but never understood its full implications." Zix's energy form pulsed with curiosity. "How does this help us defeat them, Commander?" Zara smiled, a predatory glint in her eye. "Because every part of their network is connected. What affects one affects all, and that includes their weaknesses." She manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on a particular sector. "This is where we'll strike. It's a minor swarm outpost, but it's connected to their primary communication network. If we can infiltrate it and upload a virus, one based on the same principles I used to confuse their fleet, we can disrupt their entire command structure." The assembled aliens murmured amongst themselves, a mix of excitement and apprehension filling the room. "It's risky," Crix growled, but there was a note of admiration in his voice. "We'll be striking deep in swarm territory." Zix's form flickered rapidly, a gesture Zara had come to recognize as deep thought. "But if it works, we could cripple their operations across multiple systems. It's bold, Commander." "I like it." Over the next few days, preparations for the mission went into overdrive. Zara worked tirelessly with the Nexus's diverse crew, combining her knowledge of Earth's final military innovations with the unique technologies and abilities of her alien allies. In a secluded corner of the ship's engineering bay, Zara found herself working alongside Elia, a small, furry alien with 6 arms and a genius for mechanical engineering. Together, they were modifying Zara's stolen swarm ship for the upcoming mission. "Your species continues to amaze me, Commander," Elia chittered, her multiple hands working in perfect synchronization as she integrated a cloaking device into the ship's biomechanical hull. "To think you developed so much in your fight against the swarm, even as your world fell." Zara paused in her work, a wave of melancholy washing over her. "We had no choice. It was innovate or die. In the end, we did both." Elia's large eyes blinked sympathetically. "But not all, you survived, Commander. And for you, the legacy of your people lives on." Before Zara could respond, an alarm blared through the ship. "All hands to battle stations." Zix's voice echoed through the comms. "Swarm fleet incoming." Zara and Elia exchanged a glance. This was it. Their chance to put the plan into action had come sooner than expected. As they raced to the bridge, Zara's mind was already shifting into combat mode. The corridors of the Nexus were a flurry of activity, aliens of all shapes and sizes rushing to their posts. They burst onto the bridge to find Zix and Crix already coordinating the Nexus's defenses. The view screen showed a terrifying sight, a massive swarm fleet, easily 10 times the size of the force they have faced before. They're not taking any chances this time, Crix growled, his scales shifting to a dark, battle-ready hue. Zix turned to Zara, its energy form pulsing rapidly. Commander, we cannot hope to defeat this force in direct combat. Your plan, it's our only hope. Zara nodded, her face set with determination. Then let's make it count. Crix, I need you with me. Elia, is the ship ready? The furry alien nodded, all 6 of her hands giving a thumbs up. Ready as it'll ever be, Commander. Good, Zara said, already moving towards the hangar. Zix, keep them distracted. Make them think we're trying to run. We'll slip past their lines and hit that outpost. As Zara and Crix boarded the modified swarm ship, the sounds of battle already echoing through the Nexus, a moment of understanding passed between them. This mission could well be a one-way trip. Ready to make history, big guy? Zara asked, strapping herself into the pilot's seat. Crix's reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. With you, human. Always. The hangar bay doors opened, revealing the chaos of the space battle beyond. Swarm ships swarmed around the Nexus, their energy weapons lighting up the void. With a thought, Zara engaged the ship's cloaking device and engines, launching them into the fray. Navigating through the battle was like threading a needle in a hurricane. Zara's enhanced connection to the swarm ship, combined with Crix's keen senses, allowed them to dodge and weave through the combat zone undetected. As they cleared the main battle, Zara set a course for the swarm outpost. Hang on, she warned Crix. This is where it gets tricky. The ship surged forward, pushing its modified engines to the limit. Stars blurred around them as they entered FTL, the stolen swarm technology, protesting against the strain of Zara's improvements. They dropped out of FTL on the edge of the outpost system, the sudden deceleration nearly knocking them out of their seats. Before them loomed a massive structure, part space station, part living organism. Tendrils of biomechanical matter stretched out into space, pulsing with malevolent energy. By the ancient stars, Crix breathed, his usual gruff demeanor shaken by the sight. How are we supposed to infiltrate that? Zara's hands flew over the controls, interfacing directly with the ship's systems. We're not. We're going to let them pull us in. Before Crix could protest, Zara had disengaged the cloaking device and sent out a swarm distress signal. The effect was immediate. Tendrils from the station reached out, enveloping their small craft and drawing it in. As they were pulled into a cavernous docking bay, Zara turned to Crix, her face set with grim determination. Remember the plan. We get to the central processor, upload the virus, and get out. Anything gets in our way. Crix hefted his plasma rifle, a fierce grin spreading across his reptilian features. We introduce them to extinction. Let's go, Commander. They exited the ship into a nightmarish landscape of pulsing flesh and cold metal. Swarm drones skittered about, their insectoid forms a disturbing blend of organic and mechanical parts. But thanks to the modifications Zara and Elia had made to their suits, they registered as just more drones to the swarm's sensors. Navigating through the twisting corridors of the outpost was like moving through the innards of some gargantuan beast. Everything pulsed with an unsettling alien life. Zara fought down her revulsion, focusing on the mission. Finally, they reached the central chamber. A massive, brain-like structure dominated the room, tendrils of data and energy flowing in and out of it. That's our target, Zara whispered, pulling out a data spike containing the virus. Cover me. As she approached the central processor, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Their disguises had failed. "Hurry, Commander," Crix shouted, already engaging the first wave of swarm defenders with his plasma rifle. Zara plunged the data spike into the pulsating mass of the processor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a shockwave of energy burst forth, rippling through the entire station. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Swarm drones fell twitching to the ground, the coordinated defense of the station dissolving into chaos. But they weren't out of danger yet. "Run!" Zara yelled, grabbing Crix and sprinting back the way they had come. They fought their way back to their ship, the station crumbling around them as the virus spread through its systems. As they blasted out of the disintegrating docking bay, Zara allowed herself a moment of exhilaration. They had done it. The first real blow against the swarm had been struck. But as they set a course back to the Nexus, Zara knew this was just the beginning. The real war was only just starting, and humanity through her would be at the forefront of the fight for galactic freedom. Resurgence, a new dawn for humanity. The Nexus erupted in celebrations as Zara and Crix's ship docked, returning victorious from their daring mission. The halls rang with cheers and songs in a dozen alien languages, all united in their jubilation. As Zara stepped onto the deck, she was nearly bowled over by Elia, the six-armed engineer, wrapping her in an enthusiastic hug. "You did it, Commander," Elia chittered excitedly. "The virus is spreading through the swarm network faster than we could have hoped." Zix floated forward, its energy form pulsing with a warmth that Zara had come to recognize as pride. "Commander Chen, you and Crix have given us something we haven't had in centuries, a real chance at victory." Crix, standing tall despite his battle-worn appearance, placed a clawed hand on Zara's shoulder. "We may have struck the blow, but this victory belongs to all of us. Human ingenuity, Elia's engineering, the bravery of the Nexus crew, it took all of us to make this happen." Zara nodded, feeling a swell of emotion. Crix is right. This is just the beginning. We've hurt the swarm, but they're far from defeated. We need to press our advantage. Over the next few weeks, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The virus had spread far beyond the initial outpost, crippling swarm operations in dozens of systems. For the first time in living memory, the swarm was on the defensive. In the Nexus's war room, Zara stood before a holographic map of the galaxy, watching as more and more systems lit up green, liberated from swarm control. "The virus has given us an opening," she explained to the assembled alien leaders. "But the swarm is adaptive. They'll find a way to counter it eventually. We need to strike hard and fast while we have the upper hand." Zix's energy form rippled with agreement. "What do you propose, Commander?" Zara zoomed in on a particular sector of the map. "This is where I believe the swarm's central hive is located. It's the source of their coordination, the heart of their hive mind. If we can take it out, we can shatter the swarm once and for all." A murmur ran through the assembled aliens. The target was deep in swarm-controlled space, more heavily defended than anything they had faced before. Crix stepped forward, his scales shimmering with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "It's a bold plan, Commander. But how do we get past their defenses?" Zara smiled, a glint of mischief in her eyes. "With a little help from our past. Elia, show them what we've been working on." The furry engineer manipulated the holographic display, bringing up schematics for a massive ship. It was unlike anything the aliens had seen before, a perfect blend of their varied technologies with designs from Earth's final days. "I give you the Phoenix," Zara announced proudly. A ship capable of standing toe-to-toe with the largest swarm vessels, armed with weapons that can pierce their biomechanical armor and shielded against their energy attacks. The room erupted in excited chatter. For the first time, they had a weapon that could truly challenge the swarm's dominance. Over the next few months, the Nexus became a hive of activity as the Phoenix took shape. Aliens from 100 worlds contributed their unique skills and technologies to its construction. Zara worked tirelessly alongside them, her knowledge of Earth's final technological achievements proving invaluable. As the day of the final assault approached, Zara found herself standing in the Phoenix observation deck, gazing out at the stars. Crix joined her, his usual gruff demeanor softened by the weight of the moment. "Nervous, Commander?" he asked. Zara chuckled softly, terrified, but also hopeful. "For the first time since I woke up in that bunker, I feel like we have a real chance to change things, to give the galaxy back its future." Crix nodded, his reptilian features set in a solemn expression. "Whatever happens tomorrow, you've already changed the course of history. You've given us all hope. Your people would be proud." Tears pricked at Zara's eyes, but she blinked them away. There would be time for sentiment later. Now they had a war to win. The next day, as the Phoenix led a fleet of ships from 100 liberated worlds towards the heart of swarm space, Zara stood on the bridge, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. "All ships, report in," she commanded, her voice steady despite the stakes. One by one, the captains of the Allied fleet sounded off. Humans might be all but extinct, but in this moment, Zara felt the weight of 100 species on her shoulders. They were all counting on her, on the legacy of human perseverance she carried. As the swarm's home system came into view, a vast armada of biomechanical ships moving to intercept them, Zara felt a strange calm settle over her. "All ships, battle formation," she ordered. "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves today. We're fighting for every world the swarm has consumed, for every species they've driven to the brink of extinction. We're fighting for the future of this galaxy." She paused, looking around at the diverse crew of the Phoenix, Crix at tactical, Alia at engineering, Zix coordinating with the fleet, and dozens of other aliens all working in perfect harmony. "We are the light in the darkness," Zara continued, her voice rising with passion. "We are the last best hope for a free galaxy, and today we take back our future." A cheer went up across the comms as the fleet surged forward. The Phoenix's weapons blazed to life, cutting through swarm ships with unprecedented effectiveness. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Swarm ships exploded in silent bursts of fire and biomatter. Allied vessels fell to the swarm's relentless attacks, but slowly, surely they pushed forward. As they neared the central swarm hive, a massive structure that pulsed with malevolent energy, Zara knew it was time for the final push. "All ships, concentrate fire on the hive's central node," she commanded. "Alia, divert all power to weapons. Crix, I need pinpoint accuracy. This is our one shot." The Phoenix shuddered as it unleashed its full arsenal. Beams of energy, missiles, and exotic weapons, born from the combined knowledge of 100 worlds, all converged on a single point. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a silent flash that seemed to ripple through the very fabric of space, the swarm hive began to collapse in on itself. A psychic scream tore through the minds of everyone in the fleet as the swarm hive mind shattered. Swarm ships everywhere began to drift aimlessly, their coordinated attacks dissolving into chaos. As the dust settled and the realization of their victory began to sink in, Zara slumped in her command chair, exhausted but triumphant. Crix was the first to speak, his voice filled with awe. "We did it. We actually did it." Zix's energy form pulsed with joy. "The swarm is broken. The galaxy is free." Cheers erupted across the bridge, across the entire fleet. Centuries of oppression had ended in a single defining moment. As Zara looked out at the celebration around her, at the beings from 100 worlds united in victory, she felt a profound sense of peace. Humanity might be gone, but its spirit lived on in this moment, in this victory. In the days and weeks that followed, as the galaxy began the long process of healing and rebuilding, Zara found herself at the center of a new galactic alliance. The Phoenix became a symbol of unity, of the strength found in diversity. Standing once again in the observation deck, gazing out at a galaxy full of possibility, Zara allowed herself a moment of reflection. She had awoken as the last human, carrying the weight of a dead world. Now, she stood as a beacon of hope for countless species, a bridge between the past and a bright, unwritten future. The swarm that consumed humanity, but they had failed to extinguish its spirit. That spirit now lived on in every free world, in every being who dared to dream of a better tomorrow. As she turned to join her friends, her family, in planning the next steps for their reborn galaxy, Commander Zara Chen smiled. Humanity's story wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning.